My mom slept with my best friend, then tried crawling back. But when my fiancé helped her, I called off the wedding like a boss. So here's the deal. My life kind of blew up, and I never thought I'd be the one telling a story like this. But maybe putting it out there will help me make sense of it all. This is how my family went up in flames, and how I lost two people I thought would always have my back. Growing up, my family was pretty normal. My dad, Tom, a 51-year-old male, was one of those quiet, dependable guys. He worked long hours to give us a good life and never complained about it. My mom, Lisa, a 46-year-old female, was the outgoing one. She was always chatting with neighbors, organizing family dinners, and acting like the glue that held everything together. And then there was Zach. Man, Zach wasn't just my best friend, he was practically my brother. We'd known each other since middle school, bonded over video games and terrible jokes, and stuck together through everything. Zach was the guy I'd call at 2 a.m. If I needed anything, no questions asked. My parents loved him too. He was at our house so much growing up that my mom joked she should start charging him rent. But now, looking back, I can see things that didn't sit right. They didn't seem like a big deal at the time, but they stand out now, like puzzle pieces I didn't know I needed to connect. For starters, Lisa and Zach were always joking around. I figured it was just because he was around so much, but there were moments that felt off. Like, she'd laugh a little too hard at his jokes or make comments about how Zach's such a sweet boy in a way that felt a bit extra. I even remember one time Zach made a joke about how he'd never get married because Lisa set the bar too high. Everyone laughed it off, and I didn't think much of it because, well, why would I? There were other little things too. Sometimes Zach would show up when I wasn't home, saying he was just stopping by to check on something or drop something off. Lisa never mentioned it, and I assumed it wasn't a big deal. He was like family, so it didn't seem weird that he'd be comfortable around my parents even when I wasn't there. But then it got weird. Zach was only coming to sit there, talking with Mom and throwing jokes. Some days, when I'd ask him to hang out like we always did, he'd start saying stuff like, "Nah, let's just chill at your place," or "Your house is way better than going out." It was out of character for him. Zach was always the first one to want to hit up the arcade or grab some burgers, but suddenly, he just wanted to stay in. I started suggesting we meet somewhere else instead, at the park or my favorite diner, and he'd reluctantly agree, but something felt off. He wasn't the same Zach I'd grown up with. He'd get distracted during our hangouts, constantly checking his phone, and the easy flow of conversation we used to have just wasn't there anymore. Then there was Lisa herself. She'd been acting a little different for months, but I chalked it up to normal life stuff. She was a little more dressed up than usual when she wasn't going anywhere special. Or she'd spend extra time texting on her phone but always brushed it off as talking to Aunt Karen or something like that. My dad noticed too. He'd make comments like, "Lisa's been really distracted lately," but he didn't seem to think much of it either. The weirdest part, though, was how my dad started acting. He's not the kind of guy who shows a lot of emotion, but out of nowhere, he started snapping at the littlest things. If the TV remote was in the wrong spot, he'd grumble under his breath. If dinner was a little late, he'd sigh like the world was ending. He looked tired all the time, like he wasn't sleeping. I thought maybe it was work stress. My dad's always been a hard worker, but the guy never takes a day off. I even suggested he take a weekend to himself, go fishing or something, and he just said, "I've got too much on my plate right now." I didn't push it. My dad's always been the guy who keeps his problems to himself. I figured he'd work through it like he always did, but something about it felt heavier than usual. There was this one night I'll never forget. My dad was sitting in the living room, staring at the TV, but not really watching it. I asked him if he was okay, and he just shook his head and said, "I'm fine, kiddo. Don't worry about me." His voice cracked a little when he said it, but I didn't press him. I should have. Around that time, Zach started pulling away too. He wasn't around as much, and when we did hang out, he seemed distracted. I'd ask him what was going on, and he'd just shrug and say, life stuff. That was weird for him because Zach was the most carefree guy I knew. But here's the thing. When you trust someone completely, you don't think twice about stuff like that. Zach was my best friend. Lisa was my mom. My dad was my rock. I didn't think for a second that anything was wrong between them. Then one day, my dad came home from work looking completely drained. He barely said a word during dinner, which wasn't like him. Later that night, I heard my parents arguing. It wasn't loud, but I could hear the tension in their voices. My dad said something like, "I know what's going on, Lisa. Don't lie to me." I didn't hear her response, but I froze. That was the moment I knew something big was happening. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it felt like a crack had formed in the foundation of everything I thought I knew. I didn't sleep that night. My mind kept spiraling, replaying every little detail, the way my mom had been acting, the subtle changes in my dad, and whether there was something obvious I'd missed. Their argument earlier didn't feel like the small passing disagreements they sometimes had. It felt heavier, like something deeper was wrong. I tried convincing myself I was reading too much into it, chalking it up to a rough patch or maybe just a misunderstanding, but the pit in my stomach told me otherwise. The next morning, my dad sat me down. I could tell right away that this wasn't going to be a casual chat. He looked defeated, like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders, and it was finally too much. He sighed deeply and said, "I need to tell you something, kiddo. You're not going to like it, but you deserve to know." At first, I thought maybe someone had died. The way he was struggling to get the words out, it felt that heavy, but what he actually said hit me harder than I ever thought possible. "It's your mom," he started. His voice cracked, and he had to take a minute before continuing. "She's been having an affair, and it's with Zach." I felt like my brain short-circuited. I couldn't even process what he was saying. I genuinely laughed, but when I saw my dad's expression, I just stared at him, waiting for him to tell me it was a joke or that I'd misunderstood. But he wasn't joking. "Zach," I finally managed to say. My voice barely came out. Like, Zach? My best friend Zach?" My dad just nodded, and I could see the pain in his eyes. This wasn't just about Lisa and Zach betraying me. They'd betrayed him too. He told me how he'd found out. It started with little things. A weird text on Lisa's phone that she quickly dismissed as a wrong number. Times when she said she was running errands but was gone way longer than usual. He didn't want to believe it either, but something felt off. Then one day, he came home early from work and saw Zach's car parked outside the house. "I knew something was wrong the moment I saw it," he said. "I went inside, and there they were, acting like teenagers sneaking around. I couldn't even breathe. The mental image alone made my stomach turn. Zach wasn't just my best friend, he was like a son to my parents. And my mom? She was supposed to be the one person I could trust unconditionally." "What did you do?" I asked. "I told them both to get the hell out of my house," he said. "Your mom tried to make excuses, but there was nothing she could say to make it better." At this point, my dad was tearing up. I'd only seen him cry once before, when his dad passed away. Seeing him like this broke something in me. After he told me, I felt like I was in a fog. I didn't know what to say, or I just sat there, numb, as my dad kept talking. He said Lisa had been begging him for forgiveness, but he couldn't even look at her. "You don't do that to family," he said, his voice shaking. "You just don't." When I finally found my voice, I asked him why he didn't tell me sooner when he noticed the signs. He said he didn't want to ruin my relationship with my mom unless he absolutely had to. "But you needed to know," he said. "I couldn't keep this from you anymore." The anger didn't hit me right away. At first, it was just shock, disbelief, and this hollow feeling in my chest. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Lisa and Zach? How was that even possible? I told my dad I needed to talk to her. I didn't know what I was going to say, but I couldn't just sit there. When I confronted Lisa, it was like facing a stranger. The woman standing in front of me wasn't the mom I grew up with. She was someone I didn't even recognize anymore. She immediately started crying, doing that thing where she covered her face and kept saying, "It was a mistake. I didn't know what happened to me. I didn't mean to hurt anyone." I just stood there, staring at her in disbelief. "A mistake?" I said, my voice rising. "Are you serious right now? What the hell is wrong with you, Mom? He's half your age. He should be like a son to you. You destroyed this family for what? For Zach?" She didn't say anything, just kept sobbing like she was the victim. It made my blood boil. "You didn't mean to hurt anyone? Are you kidding me? You tore this family apart. You wrecked Dad, and you betrayed me. Do you even get that, or are you too busy crying for yourself to care?" Her sobbing got louder, but I was done listening. "You're unbelievable," I spat. "You're not my mom anymore. I don't even know who you are anymore." I walked out before she could say another word. I didn't trust myself to stay in the same room as her without saying something I'd regret, but I wasn't done yet. Zach still needed to hear from me, and I wasn't about to let him off the hook with just a text. I drove straight to his apartment, and the whole way there, I could feel the anger bubbling up inside me like a volcano ready to blow. I wasn't sure what I was going to do when I got there, but I knew one thing: I wasn't leaving until he knew exactly how I felt. When I got to his place, I banged on the door so hard it almost came off its hinges. Zach opened it, looking startled like he wasn't expecting me. "Oh, hey, buddy." Before he could finish, I grabbed him by the front of his shirt and shoved him back against the doorframe. "Don't you, hey, buddy, me?" I shouted. "What the hell is wrong with you? You were my best friend, my brother, and you do this with my mom?" He tried to stammer out some excuse, but I didn't let him. "I don't care what you have to say," I snapped. "You don't exist to me anymore. Do you hear me? I don't want to see your face ever again. If I do, I swear you'll regret it." Zach looked terrified, and good. He deserved to feel every ounce of the anger and betrayal I was carrying. I shoved him back one more time before letting go of his shirt. "We're done," I said. "Don't call me, don't text me, don't even think about me. You're dead to me." I turned and walked away before I did something I couldn't take back. My hands were shaking, my heart was racing, and I felt like I'd just been through a war, but at least now he knew exactly where we stood. The fallout after that was fast and brutal. My dad filed for divorce almost immediately. He didn't want to drag things out, and honestly, I couldn't blame him. Lisa moved out within weeks, and once she was gone, it was like a dark cloud lifted from the house. And just like that, our small family was torn apart, and it hasn't felt like home since then. Lisa tried to reach out to me a few times after that, texts, emails, even a handwritten letter. But I ignored all of it. I couldn't deal with her anymore. Every time I thought about her, it felt like someone was twisting a knife in my chest. Cutting her out of my life was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it was also necessary. She wasn't just my mom, she was someone I looked up to, someone I thought would always have my back. Losing that felt like losing a piece of myself. As for Zach, I never saw or spoke to him again. I made it clear that I wanted nothing to do with him, and thankfully, he respected that, or maybe he was just too scared to try. Either way, I didn't care. All that left a deep scar that I thought would never get erased. But life doesn't stop for anyone, right? Time kept moving forward, whether I liked it or not, and eventually, I started trying to piece my life back together. My dad and I settled into a new routine. We weren't exactly buddy-buddy, but we had this quiet understanding, like we were in the same boat, paddling through the same storm. He started picking up hobbies, working on old cars in the garage, and I threw myself into my job. It was easier to focus on work than to think about everything else. That's when I met Ashley. Ashley and I met at a friend's barbecue about a year after the whole mess with Lisa and Zach. She was funny, smart, and had this way of making everyone feel like the most important person in the room. We hit it off immediately. She wasn't pushy, wasn't trying to dig into my past. She just seemed real. We started dating, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I actually felt happy again. Things were good with Ashley. She was understanding, supportive, and never made me feel like I had to rush through my emotions. Over time, I found myself opening up to her about what had happened with my mom and Zach. She was horrified when I told her, of course. "What kind of person does that?" she asked, shaking her head. "You didn't deserve that." Hearing her say that helped more than I expected. For so long, I'd been carrying around this feeling like maybe I should have seen it coming or done something differently. Ashley made me feel like I wasn't crazy for being hurt. About 2 years into our relationship, I proposed. It wasn't anything extravagant, just the two of us on a quiet beach, me with a ring in my pocket and a nervous smile on my face. When she said yes, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I was finally putting the past behind me. But of course, life has a way of reminding you that some things don't stay buried. Not long after the engagement, I got a call from an old mutual friend of Zach and me, someone I hadn't spoken to in ages. At first, I thought it was going to be one of those awkward catch-up calls, but instead, he hit me with, "Hey, did you hear what happened to Zach?" I hadn't thought about Zach in a long time, but the mention of his name still brought a bitter taste to my mouth. "No," I said flatly. "What about him?" "He got arrested," the guy said. I blinked, not sure I'd heard him right. "Arrested for what?" "Robbery," he replied, like it was no big deal. Apparently, he tried to hold up a convenience store with some friends, and the whole thing went sideways. He's looking at serious time. I didn't know how to respond. Honestly, my first instinct was to laugh. Of course Zach would screw up his life even more. It was almost poetic. The guy who thought he could take whatever he wanted without caring about the consequences was now sitting in a jail cell. Karma had finally caught up with him, and frankly, it felt good. When I hung up the phone, I kept thinking about it. Zach, the guy who'd once been my best friend, was now rotting in some jail cell because of his own stupidity. Did I feel sorry for him? Not even for a second. In fact, I felt a sense of justice. This was the same guy who had the audacity to betray me and my family, thinking he'd get away with it, and now he was paying the price. Good. Let him sit there and think about how his choices got him exactly where he deserved to be. But it didn't stop there. A few weeks later, I got another surprise. My mom, yes, Lisa, decided to reach out. She sent me a long, rambling email about how Zach had betrayed her trust, and how she was so sorry for everything that had happened. She said she wanted to make things right with me and my dad, that she'd learned her lesson and realized how much she'd hurt us. I stared at the email for a while, my chest tightening with anger and disbelief. After everything she'd done, she wanted forgiveness now that Zach had crashed and burned. She wanted to come crawling back. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Ashley noticed I was off and asked what was wrong. When I told her about the email, she just shook her head. She doesn't deserve a second chance, she said. You've already given her enough. Hearing that from Ashley helped me feel more confident in my decision. I didn't owe Lisa anything. She made her choices, and now she had to live with them. But the situation didn't end there. Lisa started trying to get in touch with my dad, too. She even showed up at his house unannounced one day, crying on the doorstep and begging him to talk to her. He told her to leave and slammed the door in her face. Some people never change, he told me later. After that, I decided to move on. Zach was out of my life. Lisa was out of my life. And for once, it felt like I was finally in control. I had Ashley by my side, and our engagement felt like the beginning of a fresh chapter. Everything was moving in the right direction, or so I thought. Ashley had always been the type to see the good in people. She believed in second chances, forgiveness, and all that. And while I loved her for her big heart, there were moments when it clashed with my more hardline views, especially when it came to my mom. I had made it crystal clear that Lisa was not welcome in my life, no matter how many emails she sent or apologies she tried to fake. And Ashley seemed to understand. She told me that my actions were justifiable. One evening, Ashley casually mentioned we had plans for dinner with her coworkers. She said it was a casual get-together, nothing fancy, just a chance to meet some of the people she worked with. I didn't think much of it. Ashley's friends were always cool, and it seemed like a nice break from the usual grind. The restaurant was a cozy little Italian place. We got there a bit early, and Ashley seemed a little on edge, glancing at her phone more than usual. I figured it was work stress or something and didn't press her about it. She led me to a table in the back, and as soon as I turned the corner, I stopped dead in my tracks. Sitting there, looking nervous and trying way too hard to smile, was Lisa. I froze, my brain struggling to process what I was seeing. This wasn't just some random coworker dinner, this was a setup. Ashley had invited my mom. What the hell is this? I asked, my voice sharp enough to cut through the awkward silence. Lisa opened her mouth to speak, but I shot her a glare that made her shut it. I turned to Ashley, who was fidgeting with her hands, avoiding eye contact. Seriously, Ashley? You thought this was a good idea? She stammered. I thought maybe if you talked to her, you could work things out. After all, she's your mom, and she seems really sorry. She seems sorry? I interrupted, my voice rising. You don't know what she did, Ashley. You don't know what it was like to have your family torn apart because of her. Lisa tried to chime in. I just want to— Don't! I snapped, pointing at her. You've done enough damage. You don't get to just waltz back into my life because you're suddenly feeling guilty. People at the surrounding tables were starting to stare, but I didn't care. I turned back to Ashley, who looked like she was about to cry. You went behind my back, I said, my voice quieter but no less angry. You had no right to do this. I was just trying to help, she whispered. Help? I repeated, my disbelief turning into anger. You didn't help, Ashley. You just broke my trust in you. I threw a few bills on the table to cover whatever had been ordered and walked out. I heard Ashley calling after me, but I didn't stop. My hands were shaking as I got into my car and drove off. Later that night, Ashley came home and tried to explain herself. She said she'd been in contact with Lisa for a while and thought that if we just talked, I'd see that my mom had changed. Changed? I said, laughing bitterly. You really think someone who could destroy her own family just changes? What, did she promise she'd be better? Swear she wouldn't screw over anyone else? She's your mom, Ashley said softly, like that made it okay, her voice trembling as if she were trying to pacify me. Exactly, I snapped. She was my mom, and she chose to throw that away. You don't get to make that choice for me. Do you even get why I told you everything about what happened with my family? Ashley just stood there, looking confused and defensive. I told you about the betrayal, the pain, the boundaries I had to set because I trusted you. I trusted you to respect what I needed to heal, and what do? You crossed the line without even telling me. Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't stop. Why? Why would you do that? What part of my story made you think this was a good idea? I thought it was for the best, she said, her voice breaking. For our future. I thought having a connection with your mom, your family, would be good for us, for when we have kids someday. Don't you think they should know their grandparents? The mention of kids hit me like a brick. My jaw tightened. You think this is how you build a future? I asked, my voice sharp. By ignoring my boundaries? By going behind my back to try and fix things that aren't yours to fix? Do you even hear yourself right now? Ashley started crying harder, and for a split second, I felt a pang of guilt. But then I remembered the image of Lisa sitting at that table, smiling nervously like she hadn't destroyed everything I cared about, and my anger came rushing back. I didn't mean to hurt you, Ashley said through sobs. I thought I was helping. I thought you'd see that she's sorry, and maybe you could move on. Move on? Did she think forgiveness was a switch I could just flip because she wanted a picture-perfect future? You still don't get it, I said, shaking my head. It's not about moving on, it's about respect. You knew what Lisa did to me. You knew how much it hurt, how much it still hurts, and instead of supporting me, you decided you knew better. I just wanted to help, she repeated, her voice small and pleading. I stared at her for a moment, my mind racing. This is the person I'm supposed to marry? The person who thinks it's okay to make massive decisions about my life without even consulting me? The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. I can't build a life with someone who doesn't respect me enough to stay out of things I've made clear are off limits, I said, my tone quieter now but no less firm. Ashley, this isn't about Lisa. This is about us. How am I supposed to trust you after this? How am I supposed to believe that you won't do something like this again, thinking it's for the greater good or whatever? She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. I won't, I promise. I didn't mean to hurt you. But you did, I interrupted. And that's the problem. You didn't even think about how this would affect me because you were so focused on what you thought was right. She tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled away. I can't do this, I said, my voice heavy. I can't spend my life wondering if the next time something feels wrong, you'll go behind my back to fix it. Her sobs grew louder, but at that point, I knew there was no coming back from this. Over the next few days, things between us got colder. We barely talked, and when we did, it was tense and awkward. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I sat Ashley down and told her the wedding was off. She broke down, begging me to reconsider, saying she didn't mean to hurt me. I was just trying to help, she kept saying, like that would fix anything. But it didn't. You didn't trust me enough to let me handle my own life, I told her. How am I supposed to marry someone who thinks they know what's best for me better than I do? She kept crying, but I stayed firm. I knew this was the right choice. Breaking off the engagement wasn't easy. I loved Ashley, but love isn't enough when trust is gone. And after everything I'd been through with Lisa and Zach, I wasn't willing to risk being betrayed again. Ashley packed her things and moved out a week later. She tried one last time to change my mind before she left, but I didn't budge. Now I was alone again, and while it hurt, there was also a strange sense of relief. I'd cut out another person who thought they could make decisions for me, without considering how it would affect me. The days that followed were rough. Ashley tried reaching out, texts, calls, even showing up at my place unannounced. Each time, I stood firm. I wasn't going to let her talk me back into something I knew in my gut was wrong. One of her texts stuck with me, though. You're letting your past ruin your future. This isn't just about Lisa, it's about us. I read it over and over, feeling the frustration rise in my chest. She still didn't get it. This wasn't about my past, it was about her crossing a line I'd made clear from the beginning. Why do people think they can fix things that don't belong to them? It wasn't her responsibility to mend my relationship with Lisa. It wasn't her job to decide what was best for my future. That was my decision, and she didn't respect it. My dad was the first person I told about calling off the wedding. I expected him to be disappointed or maybe even a little upset. He'd always liked Ashley. But his response surprised me. Good, he said, leaning back in his chair. You don't need someone who thinks they know better than you about your own life. I raised an eyebrow. You're not going to tell me I'm being too harsh? Nope, he said simply. You've been through enough. You deserve someone who listens to you and respects you, not someone who thinks they're smarter than you about your own pain. And he was absolutely right. I didn't need validation to know I'd made the right call. But hearing it from him made me feel like I wasn't crazy for putting my foot down. Ashley came by one last time about a week later. I wasn't surprised to see her, but I wasn't exactly thrilled either. She stood on my porch holding a box of stuff I'd left at her place. I just wanted to say goodbye, she said, her voice quieter than usual. I nodded, taking the box from her. Thanks. She hesitated, standing there like she was trying to gather the courage to speak. Finally, she blurted out, I didn't mean to hurt you, you know. I looked at her, my expression blank. I know, I said flatly, not wanting to argue or drag this out any longer. She fidgeted with her hands, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought you'd understand someday, maybe even thank me. Yeah, after everything, she still thinks I should thank her. I let her words hang in the air for a moment before responding. I'm not going to argue with you, Ashley. You made your choice. I've made mine. She nodded, tears running down her face, and walked away without another word. It was the end of something I thought would last forever, but it was also the start of reclaiming control over my life. After Ashley was out of the picture, I decided to double down on focusing on myself. I started working longer hours and spending time with my dad. We didn't talk much about what had happened, but having him around made me feel grounded. Lisa, of course, didn't back off either. She sent more emails, called a few times, and even tried showing up at my dad's place again. He shut her down every time, and I blocked her on every platform I could think of. One day, my dad handed me a letter she'd left in his mailbox. "Do you want to read it, or should I just toss it?" he asked. I stared at the envelope for a moment, then shook my head. "Burn it," I said. He grinned. "Thought you'd say that." We didn't talk much about Lisa after that. She became like a ghost, something we both knew existed but refused to acknowledge. Now, as I'm writing this, thinking about how Ashley's gone and I've cut Lisa off for good, there's this emptiness that just sits there. I've got my dad, work keeps me busy, and I still hang out with a few close friends, but sometimes it feels like I'm just floating. It's not like I'm lonely, exactly. It's more like I'm untethered. For so long, my life's been wrapped up in fixing the mess Lisa left behind and then planning this future with Ashley. Now both of those things are gone, and I'm standing here like, okay, so what's next? One thing's for sure, though. I'm done settling. I'm not letting people in who think they can fix me or decide what's best for me. I'm not anyone's project. I know what I deserve, and I'm sticking to that. The scars Lisa and Zach left, yeah, they're still there, but they don't control me anymore. They're just reminders of how far I've come and what I've survived. But I've got to ask, am I being too harsh? Like, did I go overboard cutting people off like this? Or is it fair to draw these hard boundaries? What would you guys do?